Welcome to the Faith Legacy Series, which is designed to help families grow spiritually. This series helps parents and teens connect around important topics through the preteen and teen years. The event you're about to experience will help you, parents and teens, to have meaningful conversations around the topics of driving, independence, responsibility, and trust. Bob Lenz, international speaker and author, will help you approach this important milestone in your life together from a spiritual perspective. Let's listen in as Bob talks with a group of high school students and their parents about how it's more than just a driver's license.
I got to tell you this. I used to be an expert at raising teenagers until we had some of our own. My wife and I had 5 kids in 7 years. That's not a joke. She didn't laugh either. So I used to think that I knew what I was doing. I don't. To be honest, I'm here to learn together. But I want to tell you this. If you're here tonight, you're already ahead of the game. You're already ahead of the pack, because the people who need this the most, they didn't come tonight. It's like writing a book on workaholism. Who's going to read it? Not the workaholic. Oh, I think I'll take a day off today and read a book. So that you're here is such an awesome thing. And what we're here for is to really enjoy the ride and to really grow in that independence of what God has for us. But I want you to know this. The best families, we can still grow. Because the best families, I still have kids say to me, Bob, I got good parents. I really do. But they just don't understand. They lived 100 years ago. My dad, he doesn't even know how to text. And my mom's still trying to figure out the VCR. And we don't even have one anymore. So what I'm saying is let's just talk. Let's talk about and the best families, I get parents that come to me and say, Bob, she's a good kid, or he's a good kid. But Bob, sometimes it just doesn't connect. It seems to go in one ear and right out the other. And I just wonder if there's anybody home. An average teenager today spends 4 to 6 hours a day listening to some form of music, right? Would you agree with that? Some iPhone, something is bringing it in. You wake up in the morning, not anymore to your Mickey Mouse alarm clock, but usually to a radio alarm clock. So you wake up in the morning and you get a song stuck in your head. Did you ever do that? I've been in your schools. There's no music in your halls. And yet kids are walking on the halls. And they got a song stuck in their head. My dad used to say to me, Bob, if you could remember the answer to those tests like you could the words of those songs, you'd get an A. I said, Dad, you know what? You're right. Because the words were right there. But an average teenager that spends 4 to 6 hours a day listening to music, experts tell me, only spend 5 to 7 minutes in deep communication with their parents. Not in the same day, but in a week. You say to me, come on, Bob. I talk to my parents more than 5 to 7 minutes a week, but I'm talking about in-depth communication. I'm not talking about coming home and saying, what's to eat? Is my sweater washed? Get off my back. I cleaned my bedroom last year. Can I have the keys? I'll be home at I'll come home tonight. I'm talking about being able to share your hopes and your dreams and your visions and your goals and the things that hurt. I'm talking about being able to go home and say, Mom, Dad, so-and-so broke up with me today. I don't know what to do with the feelings inside. Or do you have progress reports at your school? They never call mine progress reports. Always deficiency notes. And I learned at an early age what day they're going to come home. So what do you do on those days? You hurry home to get the mail. I'll get the mail for Mom and Dad. Electric bill, phone bill, high school, flick my bick. I'd burn up. I didn't want them to see it. I'm talking about being able to share things like, Mom, Dad, there was a food fight at school today, but they're only throwing food at me. I'm talking about being able to say, I thought I was going to make first team, but I'm sitting on the bench again. I'm talking about you guys being able to go home and saying, Dad, you should see this new girl at school. I mean, Dad. I mean, Dad. I mean, Dad. People say to me, come on, Bob, talk to my dad about a good-looking girl? My dad doesn't know what to look for in a good-looking girl. He's married to Mom. Maybe I should have used that the other way, all right? But I'm saying we got to be able to talk. And sometimes the questions we ask, parents, I said about the students, but what about some of the questions we ask, parents? What about some of the questions we ask? I never thought I would ask these kind of questions. Like, how many times do I have to tell you? What do you want them to say? 3 more times. When are you going to grow up? I'm only 3. Why can't you be like your sister? She's a girl. Or my favorite, why did you do that? 'Cause, unless you have an honor student. I don't know. But what we got to do, and Ken Davis, I still think, has the best lines. He says, parents, we never give our kids warning that we're getting upset. What do we always do? I've had it right up to here. You got to give them a warning. I've had it up to here. He said to his 16-year-old daughter, I've had it up to here. His daughter looked at him and said, well, you got that far to go, Dad. Don't say that, all right? But you know what? It's really to a point where I'm going, we got to talk about what's going on. We have to communicate and share what's going on the inside. Because what we really want, parents really do want you to be independent. Parents really do want you to grow. If not, you get movies like Failure to Launch. But here's the point. They want to give you roots, and they want to give you wings. But so many times, as a student, all you feel is the roots. All you feel is that they want to hold you back. And parents, sometimes all you feel is they want wings, and they want to do their own thing. But you know what? There's a way that we got to stop pushing each other away. We have to see this. Independence does not mean rebellion. There's a difference. They want us to be independent, but not disconnected. And the parents, there are some things that you can do so that the students don't push away so quick. Like my own dad would always say, as long as you live under this roof. And my mom, I would get ketchup on my face. What would she do? She would take a Kleenex, spit on it, and wipe off my face. I'm like, Mom, I would rather have the ketchup on my face than your spit in front of my friends. And that was just a couple years ago. But what we really have to do is to start seeing that there is a way to find our independence. There is a way to enjoy the ride. There is a way to become my own person without being disconnected, to really connect again. Example of this is my own favorite saying in high school was, don't tell me what to do. Do you see the difference there? Instead of being able to say, I want to be my own person, I want to become who God has created me to be. Instead, I want to start pushing away. I think a good example of this is you did the whole car thing. What kind of car did you pick if you could have any car you wanted?
I don't know, like an Audi or
An Audi. Oh, nice. But here, what if God gave you a car? He said you can have any car you want. It's totally free. It's totally yours on one condition. The only condition is you can't look in the glove compartment. So that you see that it's really still mine. I own everything, but I'm going to give it to you as a steward. It's yours now. You can have it. Only one condition. You can't look in the glove compartment. Would you still want it? Of course. And you would get it and you'd be like, look at this. And you'd be driving, showing it off. I would. You have a downtown here? I would drive by downtown, people standing on the corners. Yeah. And then what would you do? I would want to give somebody a ride. You want a ride? Hop in. And as soon as somebody comes in your car, what do they always do? Number one, they start adjusting the volume or changing the channels. And they start touching all the buttons. And then what do? They want to look in the glove compartment. And so you say, hey, don't do that. And they're like, why not? Just don't. Dude, what do you got in there? Just don't. Dude, why not? Just don't. Well, am I going to pop out the sky? Am I going to, eject out? No. Well, dude, am I going to die? Maybe. But you know what? It would drive you nuts. Now, you would want to look, wouldn't you? But you know what? That's the issue. When we want independence to the point of disconnecting, that's rebellion. It's okay to be independent. It's okay to be yourself. But what's not okay is when we rebel. I always think back to the story in Scripture. So God creates Adam and Eve, gives them all the trees of the field and says, you can eat of all of them except for, how many? Just one. In other words, just don't do this one. Now, sometimes I'm like, Adam, you really screwed it up for the rest of us. I mean, one rule. Like, you know how many rules I have now? You know how many rules we're going to talk about tonight? One rule. Just don't eat off the tree. But you know what I think it's like? That glove compartment. So they got everything else, but you know what it shows? Who's still the boss? Who's still in charge? So what does Adam and Eve do? They go and eat of the tree. And they know now that they're wrong. They got this new feeling called shame. They got guilt. When you're independent, you still have relationship. When you rebel, you sever those relationships. And so guess what they did? They took fig leaves and started hiding from each other. Did you ever wonder why fig leaves? Didn't they itch? I'm sorry, I want to pick the fig leaves. But then they start hiding from even God. See, when you really start rebelling, instead of just finding independence, then you sever your relationships from one another and you start wearing masks and the communication stops and you don't know what's expected and you don't have a relationship and you don't have trust. And then you start isolating yourself and you push yourself away. And so all of a sudden it says Adam and Eve were hiding behind the trees of the field. And God came and said, what? You remember the verse? Adam, Adam, where are you? Can I ask you a question? Do you think the all-knowing God didn't know? Do you think God was really going, wonder where he went? No, he knew. He wanted Adam to know where he was. Like, my own kids, we used to play hide and seek when they were little. Did you ever do that? And they go, okay, you hide, and they'd do what? And what do you say, parents? Where'd you go? And they're like, kids, if you didn't figure it out yet, we knew where you were. God wanted Adam and Eve to know where they were. You can't hide from God. You can't hide from God. And I think this should really be called, instead of just learning our choices and responsibilities, it should really be called parenting reconnection. Because all of us, the Bible says, have sinned. And we sever relationships. And we think we don't need them. We don't need what they know. And the other way around, you're like, how can I control? Because you're at the age like never before. You really want to drive. You really want to fly. And parents, my wife and I have raised 5 kids. And at the very time they need more independence, we get scared because we know what's out there. We get scared because I was a boy once. and I know what's inside. We get scared, so the very time they need some independence, what do? We clamp down. And the very time you probably need the wisdom of your mom and dad more than ever, we push away. And I'd say this, the goal tonight, if we're honest, is reconnect. And the picture of this is the cross. The cross goes this way because guess who we first rebel against? God. And then the cross goes this way. Being independent doesn't mean you're separate from your parents. It means you get to be your own person. But like never before, we need each other. We need to be in relationship with my family, my parents, my siblings, the church, and then the cross to be complete, my relationship in the world. But so many times, this is what we do, and I'm saying what I did, what all of us do. We say, God, I don't need you. Close to 64% of students that are raised in the church, when they get to college, leave go of God, leave go of church and their faith, and they push away from their parents, and they live just out in the world. Why? I think because we've mixed up the difference between independence and rebellion. What does the cross do? Brings us back to God, forgiven. And Jesus reached and said, I love you this much, and took nails in his hands and in his feet. Why? To bring us back to God, to bring us back to one another, so that we can grow what it means to be independent and yet still be in relationship with the people who love you the most. I want you to know, whether you're here tonight or watching by video, this doesn't happen. But this is what is supposed to happen. And it may be awkward. It may be weird. Because usually my kids, when we walked into an event, they would let me pay. And then they would say, you go sit by the old people. We'll sit by our friends. But let me tell you this, the family, this connection, is what is so needed. So let's reconnect. Let's communicate. Let's talk. Let's build trust. Let's be real. And may that continue to happen. At this time, why don't you take your handouts, and we're going to team up with your family, and then we have a discussion question for your family. It's on the page. It says, discuss with your family. Finish this statement. I never forgot the time my parents let me, and think about a freedom they gave you. And then maybe talk about how that felt. Did this new freedom bring you and your parents closer together or farther apart? And why? And then talk about it a little bit, just with you and your parents. And then tell about a time when you did something wrong and you tried to hide it. And whether you got found out or you did hide it, let's talk about those now.